Go live.
Wonderful. So welcome to our third session today of the manufacturing and materials track of Startup Week, sponsored via Launch Dayton and Techstars. Today we have the good fortune of having John Staub, who is the CEO and co-founder of Priomatics, join us for a fireside chat. Prior to co-founding Priomatics, John had over 30 years experience in manufacturing, ranging from one-of-a-kind automation work cell design to 100 million per year high-speed assembly lines. John has held a range of leadership positions in manufacturing, including engineering, quality assurance, operations, and plant management. John received his bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Dayton, and he is a lifelong resident in the Miami Valley. John's experience implementing millions of dollars of improvement projects led to the observation that large manufacturers could afford enterprise-level productivity tools, yet these were out of reach for the small and medium-sized manufacturers. Primatics was founded in 2019 to bring enterprise-grade continuous improvement and predictive maintenance opportunities to all manufacturers through affordable, modular, and scalable kits. So welcome, John. Thank you for being part of the session today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Eric.
Absolutely. And so I want to give you a chance to maybe tell the audience a little bit about your backstory and how Primatics came about. You know, I gave a little introduction, but you obviously have lived the story.
Okay. Yeah, happy to. So my entire career, I've always enjoyed making and inventing things. Long before being a maker was the thing. Being an engineer, I was able to have an outlet for that inventiveness. And a lot of my family, there are a lot of Staubs in the Dayton area that are in manufacturing and have owned their own business. And I've always looked to them as, man, I wish I could do that someday, but I just didn't think I had it in me. There's so much uncertainty involved, and it seemed like that it was beyond my ability to do it. And so my catalyst was an event not related to business, but was running. I spent 40 years of my life as there was a 1 mile stretch at my house growing up, and I would run to the end of it and I would run back. And at the end of 2 miles, I was exhausted every time. And I spent 40 years knowing that if I went any more than 2 miles, I'd be exhausted. And I had an uncle that I saw him frequently, and he was battling cancer. And I saw him, and he was going through his regiments, and he looked awesome. And he told me he jogged 5 miles. And I asked him how, and he said, well, I was weak and I walked to the end of the block, and then I walked a little more. And he told a whole story about how he worked up to 5 miles. So not long after that, I ran, and when I got to close to 2 miles, I said, I'm doing this for my uncle that has cancer. And I went 4 miles. So I doubled a lifelong limitation overnight. And since then, something snapped in my head that makes me question everything. Why is it the way it is? Why I've always thought this way? And that caused me on a path to set myself up to realize my dream of having my own business that.
So self-imposed limitations that you overcome, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And it's shocking how many there are out there that I still have.
So tell us a little bit about your experience in manufacturing. I mean, you're three decades in. You know, what's that been like for you?
Manufacturing is fantastic. I mean, there's so much opportunity out there. There are tremendous opportunity for anything you want to be in it. And could have been completely satisfied staying in the corporate world and advancing my career up through there. I can tell you that since around the time of the recession, 2008, things have gotten very challenging. Technical resources are extremely limited. Cash has been limited. There's less emphasis on long training regimens for employees. There's a lot more turnover and turmoil. And those all brought along stresses that make it more and more challenging to provide the daily support for factories.
And so was that a motivator for you to leave and start your own company, or you know, what was the big impetus to the denouement that made you jump off the cliff and do Primatics?
So because of my wanting to realize owning a business, I wanted to set myself up with roles that filled in gaps that I knew I had. So I didn't have any experience in profit and loss and advanced budgeting and And the plant manager role was a great way. I put myself into that, even though it was against my personality to take it. And so I figured if I could make myself a success there, I could run a business. And it did work, but that took a huge toll on me. And at the time that is happening, the company is going through a lot of transitions. And I spent a year and a half as plant manager. And during that time, I had 6 bosses. And every time you get a new boss, why are you doing it this way? How come this thing, I want you to do it this way instead. You got to tear everything down, start over, and you start over fresh, justifying your existence and everything that went right and everything went wrong. And so that personal equity really gnawed on me, that every time there was no loyalty to everything I had done for 30 years. It was what I had done for the last couple of months for the new guy. And so by the 6th round of that, I'd had enough and decided that I'm always going to work hard, but if I do, it's going to be for me and the team, not for the whim and agenda of somebody else.
It's funny because I think most of our entrepreneurs have watched the movie Office Space, and it's that whole TPS report mentality, right?
Oh, yeah.
I got 6 bosses; they all want the TPS report differently, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, the self-employment aspect of being a startup is something that I've seen play out in numerous entrepreneur story. I mean, was that your big motivator? That really was your big motivator.
It was for me. I wanted to prove I can do it, and I'm at the age where if I didn't do it now, I never would. And I knew that being complacent and going back and sitting behind a desk someplace, I'd never realize it. So I had to take the leap.
And so you said much like you're running, the overcoming your personal limitations, that becoming a plant manager, which you felt was kind of critical to figuring out how to run an operation, in manufacturing, what was important to you, but it was against your nature. How was that against your nature?
Because I tend to be more of an introvert, and I hate standing up in front of crowds and talking. Doing this today, it's horrible. I couldn't have done this a year and a half ago. And setting myself up to where I had to do town halls every month and interact with I would interact with company presidents and with people on the floor and figuring out how all those interactions work. It was all an extremely good method of making sure that I pushed myself beyond what I was comfortable doing.
It's funny because we're engineers, both you and I, and you're probably a much better engineer than I am, but engineers in by nature are introverts, right? And most of our manufacturing and materials, at least technical officers or founders or CEOs are engineers. How did you push past that introvert mentality? And you did the town halls and whatnot. How did you get there? How are you comfortable now, or are you even comfortable now?
My personality is I've become comfortable in discomfort. I've never been afraid of trying new things, but there is a definite comfort level in corporate business world where everything's defined. You got to do things a certain way, use a certain form, be here at the right times. When you go to to the self-employed world or the entrepreneur world, none of that exists, and you're making a lot of it up. And that was a huge leap for me. And I'm fortunate that my partners have all founded and exited other businesses and have the experience to help hold my hand through a lot of it. Without that, and for the first 6 months, I did spend a period of time where I was as a contract engineer trying to launch a business at the same time, and had the basic spark of an idea, but not how to realize it as a product that's marketable and scalable. And during that time, I was just rudderless, and they certainly helped form it into what we are today.
And so, do you think maybe some advice to our audience? What practice makes perfect. I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs talk about 1,000 cups in the speaking series and forcing themselves to get out there. I mean, is it worthwhile to our entrepreneurs to get out there and practice a little bit more?
Yeah, you actually have to, and I don't do it enough. Even though I say that something snapped in my brain that made me question everything. I get so anxious when I have to cold call a customer that I fumble. I'm an idiot, just blabbering, and I apologize the whole time, and it's horrible. I am pathetic, and that all comes from practice and forcing myself to work on these things. Same way with standing up at doing pitches in front of investors. I still can't do an elevator pitch. If you ask me to say in a minute I'll tell you everything a company's not, and then fumble all around it and eventually get to the point. Just doesn't work right.
Listen, John, you're being a little bit humble. I've known you for at least 2 years now, and I've seen you publicly speak, and you do obviously a great job. But I will echo the fact that when I publicly speak, I still get the cold hands, right? You still feel anxious to do it, and I think that practice makes that better. And so that's a pretty good tip for our audience. It's worthwhile getting out there and overcoming the what you see as your perceived deficiencies, whether it's public speaking or ability to orate something. So John, that's wonderful advice. Given that you came from this factory, this big business, what were you fearful of making the jump? It sounds like you transitioned yourself to a contract manufacturer. What was your biggest fear when you were coming out?
My fear was that I had spent 15 years as a desk jockey, where I've always been hands-on, but it was when I felt like going out and helping on a project, I would do it. It's a lot different when you're the one that has to produce the results, rather than having to, being the one that manages it. So my fear was that I had lost skills and wasn't relevant to what the customers needed, and that my limited exposure to a couple of key industries may not translate to everything else. So to counter that, what I did is I took a year and a half where I set myself up as just a contract engineer, and it was a very humbling experience. Working I picked a large, a medium, and a small company, and then just did floor support work, wiring things up, getting things to run, fixing things that were broken. At the same time that I was looking for the right product to bring to market, right. And then, but it gave me, what it did was gave me a fantastic insight into what customers needed, exactly what their needs were. Not only that, but who was calling on them to fill those needs, where they looked for their information, and then confirmation that the things that I thought were important to customers, which ones were, and then which ones had, were too stale to be bringing to market today.
It's funny because we keep espousing customer discovery, and that's a common theme across this track, and the value of it, ascertaining the value proposition from your customer and how that steers your decisions. It sounds like you went through that customer discovery process as a contract engineer that led to Priomatics. I mean, what was that process like for you?
So I had, the first thing I did is I went to the Small Business Administration, and I had this spark of an idea, and it was totally hardware related, nothing at all to do with software. And here's what I'm thinking, and it seems to be a market for it, but it was completely raw. I didn't know how big the market was or how I was going to expand it. But they saw enough in me that they recommended the Entrepreneur Center and the ESP program, and made some connections towards UDRI's Fast Lane, and things that could help me flesh out the market size and the scope and where it was going. And then through the ESP program, I went through their boot camp and made connections to my partners, and was able to bring it into the product it is today, to fine tune those ideas. And so the process with the customer discovery, it was a nightmare as far as working during the day and then holding meetings before and after work. And I'd go out in my lunch or car at lunch and hold meetings, and then change in the car on my way to appointments, do the wet nap shower between a baby wipe shower or whatever. So it was tough, and you feel so inadequate during all of it because you don't know the answers. But you just got to keep pushing your way through it and gaining that confidence.
So we talked to a lot of our previous panelists about whether or not they were funded via equity capital, or how did they get their funding to come into existence. So can you tell us a little bit about the Primatics story and how you actually came up off the ground?
Yes. So our business, we are founding it to make ourselves attractive to investors. because we are a software as a service model, and so you have a lot of development effort up front, and then your payoff is huge, but it's quite a bit down the road, and you have to be able to pay for things in the meantime until you get that recurring revenue coming in. And so we have friends and family investment, we have some personal investment of the founders, and we have engaged venture capitalists to fill in the rest of it.
Wonderful. And so it seems like you're also supplementing that with non-dilutive capital. Has that been successful for you?
It's been fantastic. We have a phase 2 SBIR with the Air Force where we're providing sensors and software to for the equipment that supports Air Force One. So there's 40 different vehicles that support the presidential missions at Joint Base Andrews, and these are the stairs, the red carpet stairs, the lavatory trucks. There's hydraulically lifted lavatory vehicles, and so the funding for that has been fantastic in helping us grow the company, and also everything we do with them is very relevant to the commercial side of the business. And so it doesn't feel like we're doing an effort for the military and a separate effort for industry, because the vehicles that support Air Force One are essentially production machinery bolted to truck chassis. So there's some modifications that need to be done for the military requirements and for vehicle voltages and mobility, but the rest of it is very relevant to everything we're doing commercially as well.
That's fantastic. I've seen plenty of companies use the SBIR program, but they were very specific to military applications. Getting that dual use capability that you guys are doing has to be a big benefit to the company. That's a place where you probably would have had to take capital, right?
Absolutely.
So good. You guys retained bigger ownership stakes and moved the technology forward. Did you guys actually get to see Air Force One? Were you down at Andrews or no?
It brings me goosebumps every time we see it go past. So you can't get very close to it. And we haven't been there at a time when any dignitaries were arriving or leaving, but we've seen it on the tarmac as we would go past, and it's a pretty incredible little experience. And
it's gotta be pretty cool.
Yeah, the team that supports it there has been fantastic, very helpful, and especially also the Rapid Sustainment Office.
Okay.
Locally here, right, Pat? Been fantastic with helping us through the whole program and being able to support that.
That's fantastic. You see the same exact solution being offered in the commercial space for commercial airlines too?
Oh, absolutely. There's such a potential that if you think about any flights that are delayed, regardless of whether it's a military mission or a commercial one, that costs a fortune for the companies to provide those delays. And so everything we can do to predict and prevent those types of interruptions to processes and machinery is a huge benefit to them.
Wonderful. And so you told me a little bit about the fact that you had these supportive partners when you first launched Priomatics. For our audience, a lot of times, our entrepreneurs go out as co-founders or partners with other people. But what made you pick your partners? What were you looking for when you actually established Priomatics in terms of partnerships?
So when I was fumbling around with my interim company and trying to decide the business through the Entrepreneur Services Program, there are a lot of resources that are made available, and one of the big ones are an entrepreneur in residence that helps mentor you through the process. So Kim Frazier was my EIR at the time, and she helped me make connections to people that could help move the business forward. And fortunately, some of the people I was introduced to saw enough of potential in me that they were interested in being part of it. So Adam Nyberg, I had talked to him about creating my software for me, and it was his suggestion that we go together and start the company rather than use him as a supplier to myself. And that was huge for me to be able to share some of the load and to have some assistance with how the business should be developed. And very quickly afterwards, we brought in James Maynard and Erica Waite, who are also connections that were made through ESP, and they bring around out the business and the military outreach and the compliance side of the business.
Wonderful. So Kim actually was a panelist for me a little earlier today. So I'm a big supporter of Kim, and I'm glad she did great things for you. So when you guys were establishing, John, what type of company did you organize as, and was there a reason for that? Was it because of this partnership?
Yeah, since we're trying to make ourselves attractive to investors, we settle on a C corp. And I can't tell you all the benefits of one versus another, but I know that the C corps give you some the ability to have shareholders and to sell equity in the company, and it's the most attractive to the investors, and it does offer you some individual protection and some protection for the IP. So it was a perfect fit for us.
Kind of a no-brainer. And you're incorporated in Ohio, I suspect?
No, actually Delaware.
Delaware. Okay, so you did make yourself very attractive to investors.
Yes.
And I think for the audience's sake, Nevada and Delaware have very defined shareholders laws, which is why a lot of companies are looking for investment typically incorporated in those states. I was curious where you guys were. I thought you were in Ohio, but it seems like you definitely are leaning towards the investor route. So to that same kind of venue, what are your thoughts for what the growth of Primatics is, and how are you going to achieve that growth? Is it through customer sales? Is it through additional investment? What are you thinking?
So the growth has to be a combination of sales as well as investment because of the software as a service model. And so we want we're building it with an eye on the goal of exiting and within 5 years. And so making ourselves as attractive as possible to people who would want to purchase us, and making sure that everything we do is extremely scalable, and that we capture a large chunk of the market.
So I mean, to that scaling point, you guys seem to be like you said, a toolbox and a kit in a toolbox, as it were. What do you see as your main product lines, and how are those going to scale across different sectors of the industry?
So we're looking real close at what the industry is doing today, and there's so much disruption due to the pandemic, and some businesses are doing extremely well, some of them are struggling, and all of them are changing the way they produce and supply chains and how they package. So there's a lot of opportunity in places, even though the market's not doing that well. So targeting the places that need immediate help, and how do we reach them? And then now I forgot where we're going.
No, that's fine.
I was going somewhere with it.
Listen, this is why this is a fireside chat, John. So although we don't have a fire, we definitely are having a nice chat. You're talking a little bit about the product lines and how you're going to grow.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay, now I got it. So the products we're looking at we're looking at ways how do we help manufacturers that are struggling reach products that they currently don't have, and then how the ones that are currently over capacity and overwhelmed, how do they make decisions about do I need to buy new equipment? Can I make better do with what I currently have? So our products are primarily focused, the first two, on productivity and creating efficiencies out of places that are having capacity issues currently, or just want to make products better and faster. And then also with the predictive maintenance side of it, if you can prevent things from breaking, you're also affecting the productivity. And everything has an overarching approach related to the technical resource issue. So how do we make employees more effective, and the technical employees get them the information they need? So we have developed a product called the Advisor that's a portable device that you can carry up to a line. It has a few sensors with it that monitor the machine efficiency, and then gives you insight into how to improve it, remove bottlenecks and blockages and starvations. And then when a fault occurs, it gives you a knowledge base of how to recover from the fault. And if you need further help, then it has a Zoom meeting type feature where you can reach out to resources that are outside the company and can see the data as you're seeing it, plus through your camera be able to see the process as you're seeing it. So I can be at home as an engineer and have almost as much ability to solve the problem as if I was standing right there at the plant. And that's something that has been developed and ready to hit the market now that we're very excited about.
That's fantastic. It sounds like you're telemedicine for manufacturing, huh?
Hey, there you go. Now, see, you should do my pitch for me because you're much better at it.
Listen, I think given how long I've known you now, there's a huge value proposition there in the respect that these small businesses don't have the resources to bring in digitized equipment, right? Digitized new automation equipment that has predictive maintenance built into it and other things. When you were out there, knowing that Ohio is the fourth largest manufacturing state in the country, and in our manufacturing economy here in Ohio, 92% of the businesses are small businesses. Mm-hmm. There obviously was a big potential market. How did you ascertain the value to your customers when you were first going out?
So we're looking at how do we make it so that it is already done for them. So all they have to do is put it in place without a lot of legwork in order to achieve it. And then also to how do I package it in a way with modular kits where they can find and afford a solution to the remedial problem, but also have the ability to grow through stacking on additional kits. So it's much like Legos that way. I can go buy other pieces that add to it and they all talk together that eventually can take a small manufacturer and bring them up to the level of an enterprise overall system that would have cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars otherwise, but they can do it at their own pace. And there are, in many cases, paying for the devices and savings in excess of what they've got out of pocket for it. And so it turns the whole market of spending a lot of capital up front to get something and then working to justify payment for it, turns it on its head.
So when you were looking at pricing your products, how did you price those then? It seems like each of your customers, may derive an individual value proposition, but how do you price the product then?
So I wish I had a more scientific way. At this point, we're looking at what competitors have. And then, right. Well, it's a little more than that because I know what my pricing approval level was as an engineer. So I know that I had a certain amount that I could put on a credit card and didn't get questioned. And so we're attractively pricing ourselves within the budgets that a single technical resource can spend, but making it with the subscription and the ability to stack on additional things over time. So as an engineer, I could spend $3,000 and not get questioned. $30,000 went to corporate approval, and I would spend months going through the inquisition on whether it was actually going to save or not. But I could spend that $3,000 10 times and nobody would question it. So I got my $30,000 one way or another. So you just have to find it in a way.
Listen, I think that's very astute advice for our audience. Finding those gatekeepers, especially on the acquisition side for your customer, is paramount. But figuring out the pains and gains relative to that enterprise are equally important. And I think, John, you just hit it. You found the gatekeepers and you found the pain level for them, right? And that is value pricing. One way or the other, that is considered value pricing. So you hit your value based off of those gatekeepers. Where do you see it going into the medium-sized enterprises? Is it the same levels, or is it still going to be primarily focused on small businesses?
We are focusing on we're really looking at the entire market, and the medium is actually kind of the sweet spot for it because they have more opportunity and more potential for scaling horizontally within a company. The large ones, there's more barrier to entry because there's so much competition for them. And in the small ones, there's a lot of opportunity and volume, but what we don't truly know our acquisition costs and what it takes to go after each of them. So until it is a buy off the web and they do 100% of it themselves, we have to figure out the value of marketing to them, and that's something we're currently proving out.
And so you're still tweaking your sales strategy a little bit as you go out to market. Okay, wonderful. And then so we have a lot of technology focused entrepreneurs probably in the audience here, or who will see this video later. What's your IP strategy, or what IP do you have to protect, and then what's your strategy around that?
So We looked early on and spoke with patent attorneys on what we could do, and so there's questions about software itself, what's patentable and not, and that's a big challenge. There's method patents that can be approached, and then other things are you can license military patents, and there's a lot of advantages to doing that, and then there's trade secrets, and so. Because we have a platform with a wide range of kits that are applied to it, we have been holding off until we find out the kits that are the most popular, and then we're going to approach the patent protection on the ones that would provide the best protection for the majority of the customers.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I think that the hybrid model for a lot of our entrepreneurs is something they should explore. It's not always about patents, right? I mean, it sounds like you're software heavy, so trade secret probably might be a nice place for you to reside in as well, right?
That's right.
So let me grab a quick second here and ask if any of our audience has Q&A. Please type them into the box if you do. We usually get 1 or 2 questions a session here, so we'll see how we do. But unless we have some questions, I'm just going to go ahead and continue, John, if that's okay.
That's great.
All right. So what do you think your actual exit strategy is? It sounds like you guys are building towards something.
So we're looking at being acquired by a company that the large automation manufacturers. There are a lot of companies that produce the hardware and don't have the software piece of it, or are building out the software, or they sell the software but don't have access to small manufacturers. And so there's a lot of opportunity there to make ourselves very attractive to somebody that wants the customer base and the technology.
Wonderful. So how many commercial, I mean, you have commercial sales today, right? I mean, you guys are doing okay commercially, or?
So we started with some commercial sales based on relationships that I had. And when the SIBR came along, we took a step back from it to support that. And then the pandemic hit. And so during 2020, it's very much been, we had the approach of, we're going to have this military SIBR, we're going to manage it, and we're going to outsource the technical resources for it while we concentrate on the commercial side of it and do both at once. And then, so we had to contract, to reduce that to the resources we had and to not get overextended due to the uncertainty. So we ended up doing a lot of everything ourselves. And so that limited us to not pursuing the commercial side of it. And we purposefully pushed back on pursuing orders that we would not have the ability to support based on the lack of the resources and the funding to extend towards those. So we had a huge milestone to provide a prototype demo that was 2 weeks ago, and it was all hands on deck until we got to that point. And then we now have successfully achieved that, and it was phenomenal, and we have some breathing room to now take a good hard look at the commercial landscape and direct our products there.
Oh, wonderful. And so it's ironic that I asked that question, John, and then immediately someone posted how many customers you currently have. But I think you've answered that there. And so now as you're pushing out in the commercial market, what's your sales strategy look like for that?
So we're looking at a lot of partnerships, and so there are distributors that sold hardware components, sensors that already have their footprint in different facilities that we've been working with. We're also looking at there are consultants and other partnerships that we can gain where they have inside. Already have relationships with customers. And then as well as that, we're setting ourselves up with Gebben Communications through one of the TEC or ESP funding is helping us with our web presence and search engine optimization to be able, and then in our branding to be able to start outreaching to manufacturers that we don't have relationships yet, and to get in front of them. Right now, everybody's so busy that we have to make it extremely easy to find us.
Wonderful. And so how's that evolved since you first started? I mean, it sounds like you were pushing into the commercial markets. You took a step back because you were very fortunate for the Air Force contract, and now you're getting back to the commercial side. How has your marketing and sales strategy kind of morphed over the last year and a half?
It really didn't change much in that we just put it on hold for 6 months. And
Okay.
if I would do anything over as a business, it would have been initiating that a long time ago. We should have had that presence and had our name out there. And I wanted to keep things close to my chest. And I think as a bunch of fresh entrepreneurs have, you think you got this great idea and that you don't want everybody to know it because they're going to steal your idea. But until you start getting it out there and telling people what it is you've got and what to expect from it, it goes nowhere. So it was like that with my ideas, and it's the same way with our product. I would have blasted it out and made sure we had social media presence and things like that long ago.
I think that's great advice for our audience. It's funny because I used to do a little bit of commercialization at Ohio State, and everybody tell me, well, we have a patent, and that's great. Now what, right? If nobody cares, then that patent's worthless. Getting out there and talking to that customer is kind of critical, I think, and paramount. COVID, February, right? We kind of had this big transition. How's it impacted you guys?
So, on the commercial side, we took the delay, so it made our growth slower. On the military side, because we brought things in-house, it slowed things down. So there were progress payments based on milestones that got pushed back, and there would have potentially been hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of negative capital that would have been a huge challenge to be able to achieve. And the RSO office was fantastic about recognizing that and helping structure things to help their businesses manage the crisis. So that has been a fantastic assistance to it. And then the other things we're doing, we pivoted our products to be scalable and portable, or portable, so that we could get them quickly into people's hands, and that it provided the immediate value targeted towards the remote workers and the ability for people that are local but may not have all the resources to be able to achieve it, to solve their problems. And then for the military side at Andrews, they've had a lockdown since March. And so we weren't able to actually bolt our equipment onto our sensors onto their equipment. So we built an entire mock-up of their machinery in my barn that we use as our laboratory to simulate and test everything out. And it's been great for being able to prove out the concepts. And so, it's not a full stairs, but all the equipment that went on it are replicated in some manner that we can push to the point of breaking to be able to know at what point we should have reacted, and then write those into algorithms for the predictive methodologies.
All we need is a 747 for you, right?
That's right.
So we do have a question that came in, John. This is of your current customers, are your products customized to them, and what does the process of customizing look like for you, and how long does this process take?
So we are not going to make custom products for everybody. My observation has been that a lot of the problems people are trying to solve are universal. And so if I want to make a machine more efficient, it doesn't matter if it's a punch press or a tappy puller. The same types of tools go into the insight that it takes to be able to solve our common problems. So we target those industries and those problems that are the most relevant. And then we configure them for the customers to be able to hit 80% of their problems. And so if you try to solve 100% of the problems for customers, it costs you a fortune in support, and they have to spend a fortune for paying for it. But if you use the 80-20 rule and you solve 20% of their or 80% of their problems by targeting 20% of the applications, then you can do it at a much lower cost structure, and you can get what's most important to them taken care of.
It's interesting that you said the 80-20 rule, John. Our other panelists from other sessions here have always said that 80 and go, right? 80 and go.
Yeah.
If you get that close, you got to go. So
Yeah.
that's
where our name comes from. It's prioritize informatics. So that's where Priomatics is.
I didn't know that. So that's wonderful. But it's also very, very good advice for the audience. So where do you see Primatics in the next 3-5 years?
So what I expect us to grow through sales and partnerships, and what I really want is for us to have a monumental impact towards the productivity of U.S. manufacturing. And so setting us up to scale and make a lot of cash and be a successful business is all awesome. I want to be able to look at it and say, we sparked an improvement in manufacturing. And the way I look at it, if there's an engineer out there trying to solve something and it takes him a week to do it, and he can buy our kit and start getting results immediately, that's 4 days I've saved him. And so for every 1,000 customers, that's 2 man years saved. And nationwide, then we can save hundreds of thousands of man years of technical labor on the improvements we make. And all those can be spent on more important things that help move the businesses forward. So that's what drives me and where I see us going.
Or helping with the work-life balance, right? You're freeing up time now. So to that same vein, how's your work-life balance? I mean, are you all work, no play, or what do you got?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and I expected it, and I love it. It's an investment that I was willing to make, and I worked probably the same or more hours before when I was working for the man. And I was mentally exhausted all the time, and I don't remember going to work and coming home. And when I got home, it was a lot of whiskey to unwind to be able to get through the evening, and I was a jerk to my family. So that has tremendously improved, and so much more. Even though you're out of control in a lot of the, your comfort levels and things like that, you have so much more autonomy on where you're going. It feels awesome.
So what's it like being a startup in the Miami Valley area? Are you happy? You established a company there?
Oh, absolutely. The community is fantastic. I cannot tell you how many people have helped us along the way. And being around other startups and companies is so willing to help and provide inspiration is tremendous. And there's 2,500 manufacturers within 100 miles of Dayton. That it's not a bad place to launch at all.
Yeah, to test your products in a manufacturing market when you have that many so close, right? It has to be.
Right.
Has to be. And so top three off the top of your head, top three piece of advice for our entrepreneurial community here.
Top three. Number one for me has been the team. Pick a fantastic team that you are not you need to pick people that are going to challenge every assumption you make and challenge it hard. If you all agree on everything, then you're either going to get extremely lucky or you're going to be in big trouble. And I think that's the strength. Everything is going to take longer than you expect, so don't be impatient. And then I think really reach out for help wherever you can get it. There's so many resources available if you're not taking advantage of them. You're hurting yourself. The Entrepreneur Center, there's SCORE, there's partnerships, advisors, colleagues. You need to be hitting as many of those as you can and putting them to good use.
John, it's interesting because the first two we've had is kind of a common theme of a lot of the entrepreneurs I've talked to. It's hard for that reach out for help for a lot of people. Did you find that hard for yourself, or was it something you just naturally did when you started?
The difficult part wasn't asking for help. It was feeling so inadequate because you don't know everything that you feel like you are maybe not worth them helping you.
Yeah.
It's really tough being, you always hear people say, I don't like being the smartest one in the room, but it's challenging to be the dumbest one in the room. There's a lot of emotional intelligence, and yet, so I always felt like, man, you know so much about this, and I don't know anything. I feel like an idiot even asking this, but it.
I found the smartest people in the world are people like yourself, John, who realize they don't know what they don't know, right? And are willing to admit that. And I think, listen, I think it's that's why I brought it up. It's a big challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs to ask for help, and the ability to do that, I think, very positively impacts your success rate. And it's something that not many of our panelists have hit on, but you hit on it. And I just wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper on that. So thanks very much for hitting that.
Yeah, I can say most of the connections and advancements I made is from, letting people know what I was working on, or, what the company's doing, and then asking for help, and then getting the connections to people that could help fill that.
Wonderful. So listen, John, we're at our 45 minutes. It has been
All
a
right.
wonderful fireside chat. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, good luck in Priomatics. I know you're going to crush it. And if you need anything along the way, obviously you have the community, and we're here to help. So
Absolutely. Hey, thanks a lot, Eric. I enjoyed our conversation.
absolutely, John. I'll talk to you soon, bud. I look forward to coming out and seeing you.
All right.
Out of here.
Bye.